Senator Dick Durbin didn't just question Trump's nominees, he exposed a much bigger truth. How can we talk about law and order when the very people enforcing the law might be bending to political power? And how does a city like Shreveport end up with a murder rate higher than Chicago's? This hearing went deeper than crime. It went straight to the heart of justice in America.
Teamwork is the word that I would use most often.
Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Chairman Grassley. Mr. Duva, it was a pleasure to meet you in my office. I had never met you before, and you did well. You made, I thought, a convincing, sincere presentation of your belief that the responsibility of the U.S. Attorney is unique. You acknowledged the authority of the office and the power of the office to change lives. You've been involved in a case that drew national attention on public corruption, and we talked about that for some period of time. The Penn section of the Department of Justice, which is part of your division if you're confirmed, has been reduced in number from 30 to 2, and the 2 are literally novice political appointees. I was heartened to hear you believe that the Penn plays an important role in making decisions involving prosecution of public corruption. There's a longstanding requirement that prosecution of public officials be reviewed by Penn's career prosecutors to ensure that they are not politically motivated. Attorney General Bondi has reportedly eliminated this requirement. When we met, you told me you thought Penn played an important role in the process. Do you agree that Penn prosecutors should review the prosecution of public officials?
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member Durbin, and I enjoyed our 25 minutes in your office on Monday. I appreciate your time, and I thought we had a great and honest discussion. To answer your question about Penn, I've worked with Penn in multiple cases. I tried a case against a former member of Congress in 2017 with Penn, and it was a very good partnership. What I will do if I'm confirmed by the Senate is have a discussion with the Deputy Attorney General about repurposing Penn and figure out how to, if there's a lane, to build up that section and make it a more robust section than it is. I'm aware of the news. I wasn't involved in any of those decisions of it going from 30 lawyers to 2 lawyers. I understand some of those lawyers are detailed in other portions of the criminal division. But I think from my own experience, which is a specialty of mine, that public corruption prosecutions have an absolute place, both in the U.S. Attorney's offices and the criminal division. And I will have discussions with Deputy Attorney General Blanche because I believe the criminal division should have a footprint in those prosecutions and evaluating cases at the national level.
We've seen reports of the indictments against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Many of them were hastily brought by Lindsay Halligan, a Trump loyalist installed as the interim U.S. Attorney when other prosecutors balked or were removed. I said to my staff how impressive our meeting was, and they said, what will he do when he gets the Comey call? What will he do as an 18-year veteran of the U.S. Attorney's Office when a political figure in this administration says, this is what I want you to do, prosecute this person, whether it's a member of Congress or someone who wronged the president in years gone by? You said you've done the job the right way for 18 years, and I have no reason to believe you have not. The question is whether or not you're going to stand by that when you're faced with that moment. It could be a call from the White House. It could be a call from the Department of Justice. It could be a tweet by the President of the United States instructing you to prosecute an individual that you know there's no evidence against. So let me ask you, Mr. Duva, what will you do?
I will stand by. When I was sworn as an AUSA, I took an oath, and I take it seriously, and I bring it before this committee today. Those cases are not being handled by the criminal division. They're being handled by another U.S. Attorney's Office, the Eastern District of Virginia. I really don't know much about them other than what I've read about them, so I cannot comment specifically on those cases, and I've never met Ms. Halligan. But what I can tell you, Senator, and what I told you in your office, is that I will always do one thing, and that is apply the facts to the law in any case, whether it's a public corruption case, a transnational drug case, or anything of that nature, because that's what you're sworn to do, and that is the only path for a prosecutor. And as I mentioned in my opening statement, all we have is our integrity, and if I get a call or a referral, the case will go to a line attorney in the public integrity section or whatever section it is, and it will be worked up properly by properly using the grand jury, and we will investigate a case and make a charging decision based on the Justice Manual and the ethics of my office.
Mr. Van Hook, you've been acting U.S. Attorney in the Western District of Louisiana. I'm sure you're aware of the crime rate in Shreveport, Louisiana. What you may not know is the latest status shows that Shreveport has a higher murder rate than the city of Chicago. Is violent crime a problem in Shreveport?
Senator, violent crime is a problem anywhere, and in any murder, any having one victim of a murder is one too many. And as being in leadership in the United States Attorney's Office in Shreveport, I've worked very hard with our state, local, federal law enforcement partners to do our best to help bring down the crime rate. We've worked with the district attorney there, the police chief. We've formed a collaborative partnership. You know, unlike a lot of places in this world today, we all get along there, and we've all worked very hard together to try to reduce crime.
Do you think you need the National Guard to fight crime in Shreveport, Louisiana?
I don't think we need them, but I think they would be welcome. I think that the chief of police would welcome them. Chief Smith, I believe, would welcome their help. And I think that whatever resources could be brought to bear to reduce crime in Shreveport would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Durbin, that was a good question. And yes.
What you just saw wasn't just another Senate confirmation hearing. It was a masterclass in how accountability and politics collide right at the intersection of justice and power. Senator Dick Durbin wasn't just asking routine questions. He was trying to find out whether these nominees, handpicked by Donald Trump, can truly act as independent guardians of the law, or if they're just extensions of political will. Durbin starts by acknowledging the nominee, Mr. Duva, a veteran prosecutor with 18 years of service. But the real test wasn't about his resume. It was about his spine. Can he stand firm when political pressure hits? Because the reality is, in Trump's Washington, prosecutors weren't just asked to enforce the law, they were sometimes told whom to go after. Durbin reminded everyone of that history, citing the politically motivated prosecutions of people like former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, individuals who had crossed Trump in some way. So when Durbin asked, "What will you do when you get the Comey call?" that question carried real historical weight. He was referencing those moments where the justice system itself was tested, when loyalty to the law clashed with loyalty to power. And Duva's answer, while calm and procedural, still leaves you wondering. He said all the right things about integrity, process, and ethics. But we've heard that before. The question is never how someone talks about integrity in a hearing, it's how they act when the call actually comes. Then Durbin pivoted, and what he brought up next was striking. Shreveport, Louisiana, with a higher murder rate than Chicago. Think about that. Chicago has been the political poster child for urban violence for decades. It's become shorthand in political rhetoric. Look at Chicago, used again and again by conservatives to frame crime as a partisan failure. But here's Durbin flipping that narrative on its head, pointing out that a smaller southern city under Republican leadership faces an even deadlier crisis. That's not a statistic, that's a reality check. It forces the conversation away from slogans and back toward the human cost of systemic failure, poverty, underfunded local enforcement, and the lack of community-based solutions that actually prevent violence instead of just responding to it. So what's Durbin doing here? He's connecting two threads: politicized justice at the top and failed justice on the ground. The message is clear. When those in power use law enforcement as a political tool instead of a public service, communities like Shreveport suffer the consequences. When justice becomes partisan, nobody is safe. And that's the deeper takeaway here. This wasn't just a moment about one nominee will stand up to pressure. It's about whether America still believes that justice should serve the people, not the president. If we can't trust prosecutors to say no to political power, if we can't ensure that watchdogs and law enforcement stay independent, then how can any community, from Chicago to Shreveport, ever expect true justice? That's why hearings like this matter. They expose not just who's sitting in the chair, but who's really holding the reins of justice behind the scenes. If you believe in restoring that independence, if you want truth, transparency, and accountability back in public service, make sure to subscribe to Left Lens, where we don't just replay the hearings, we unpack the meaning behind them.